Alrighty, so today in the shop we have an early 90s Suzuki King Quad, I believe 300 cc's. Buddy of mine acquired it a few years ago, put some rear tires on it, and rode the snot out of it. Had a lot of fun with it, pulling stuff around, using it for whatever he used it for. Neglected it a little bit. Believe that it has low compression. We're going to do a compression test here and see if we're correct on that. Although, it also needs a new throttle cable, carburetor cleaned, the pull cords, rear shocks. This thing needs quite a bit of work. You can see the rear shocks aren't very good. They're not terrible, but he wants something beefier, which he bought, so we'll oblige and put them on. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to do the compression test, and we'll find out where we need to start out on this old girl. Alrighty, so went through, got our compression tester in. The battery had a little bit of a charge in it. I still threw the battery charger on it, so this way we can get more juice. So I'm gonna hit the button here and see what happens. Yeah, I'm gonna say that's not good. All right, so we got 50 with the throttle closed. Let's see what we get with the throttle open. Slightly higher, but not high enough. Not quite sure. We're opening the throttle all the way, but make sure it's there. There we go. Alright, so we got the throttle wide open. We're going to see what happens. Yeah, that's not a good sign. We're still rating just above 50. So, I'm going to say this thing needs piston rings. Hopefully there's not too much scoring on the cylinder itself. But she going to need some life breathed back into her. Which we'll get started on. Alright, so wanted to do an update. Got the rear plastics off, rear rack off, the air box out, we got the muffler and exhaust out. This is definitely an interesting exhaust. There is a massive guard here, which I think caused it to overheat. As you can see, that is just caked full of mud. I don't like this, but I understand why they did it. It's another piece over here of the heat shield, the exhaust tube itself. We can see another piece of heat shield here. So I know it needs the heat shield. I just don't like that front piece. So I think it just catches too much mud. So I don't know if we're going to put that back on. We might leave it off. We'll see what happens. Or maybe cut a couple, make the holes a little bit bigger to allow more airflow in. But so we're plugging away, slowly taking it apart, hoping to maybe at least get the head off so we can see what the condition of the piston looks like, and we'll go from there. Alrighty, as you can see, we are torn clear down. Got the piston here. Believe it's an original piston, I'm not sure. You can see the little marks on it from when I was using a screwdriver to make sure she was in top dead center. All in all, she does not have a lot of wear. Definitely not what I expected. The rings seem fairly decent. And at first glance, cylinder walls seem to be fairly good. There's a little bit of crud in there for me sticking my fingers. A little bit of built up. But I was looking at the bottom here. You can see where there was rust at one point. You still see the cross hatching on the bottom. The rest of the cylinder looks beautiful, but you can see right there, looks like rust. And this side's got a spot right there. She had some water in it, and it was locked up down towards the bottom. Looks like you can see where the rings, yeah, right there. You can see where the rings were sitting, and it was frozen in place. The rest of the cylinder wall here looks beautiful. So I'm going to do a quick honing on this thing, and we should be able to use stock piston. But I believe that little bit right there wore away at these rings a little bit and made it so we couldn't get good compression. So I'm hoping at least that's what it is. So I'm going to pull out all the parts, check them out. See, here's a little bit of a buildup in the head, but nothing crazy. So, you know, I would expect that from something this old. But inside the engine was fairly clean. No sludge. I'm going to say that, you know, hopefully with these new rings and slapping them all back together, we'll be good to go. But at this point, who knows? So you can see here where all this crud is from where the pull cover has been missing. He didn't really care about the pull cover not being there. 'Cause, you know, being electric start and all. So we're going to have to clean all that fun, nasty stuff out. I just started cleaning it up a little bit, but still more to do. Another day back in the shop here. Gone through and I've set the new piston on, clocked all the rings, went through and did a quick hone, a light hone on the cylinder. Got all the nasty rust and everything out of there. So it looks pretty decent. Got some nice cross hatching in there now, so she should be good. I'm gonna go through, get the new head on, and try and get the engine back assembled, and hopefully the engine will be done and we can work on the rear shocks, the front boots for the axles, and other miscellaneous things. Check back with you in a minute. So got everything back together, got the new piston in, had everything back on. The valve clearance seems good. So now it's time to put the exhaust on, clean the carburetor, new throttle cable. This is definitely one of the more difficult machines that I've worked on, just because of how the engine's set in there. But it's not terrible. I will say it's fairly easy. Yeah, so I'm gonna get this bar back in place, get the front engine mount, so that I can button up and call it done. And I'm gonna go from there. Check back with you in a few minutes. All right, so I went through, got the exhaust on, fully bolted in, everything, it's all tight. I had 2 bolts snap here on this heat shield. I have to figure out something to do back here for it. Might just weld it in place. I don't know, we'll see. This bolt ended up having to grind off because it was stuck in there and I couldn't get it out of the case. Might just drill it out. So got the heat shield in the front here. I showed you before how it was all caked with mud. I went through and I took a drill bit and I drilled a bunch of larger holes in it. Hopefully it'll get things to not stick in there as much. I'm hoping it'll cool off the engine a little bit better as well. So, I mean, it really doesn't serve much purpose back here. It's just a heat shield to protect your hand if you got to put it in here for whatever reason. But other than that, more for aesthetics, I guess. So, moving along, I took the rear shocks off, which are over there on the floor. Buddy had bought these new ones here, Bronco shocks. The only problem is that the bottoms are too big. So I don't know if we gotta open that up to make it fit, or if he's just gonna go out and get new shocks. You can see how much bigger that is. It's quite a bit. So we'll see what he decides. We'll talk to him and we'll go from there. Alrighty, so went through, made sure she was getting fuel, got her to fire up. You can see she's smoking a little bit. She needs a little help. There she goes. She sounds good. Gotta get a new spark plug. You can tell it's definitely rough. I'm gonna let her cycle through real quick, and hopefully the rings will be nice and seated and we'll be good.
Alright guys, well, in this week's video we kind of forgot to shoot an outro, so come tune in next week to see what happens. And if you guys like this kind of content, like, comment, subscribe, and thanks for watching.